I let my entitled neighbor think I moved out. Then I got the sweetest revenge. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. My neighbor, Karen, yes, that was actually her name, built her entire personality around that mistake. When I first moved into the building, she seemed fine. Friendly, chatty, the kind of person who insists you take cookies even when you've already said no. But a few weeks in, I realized her niceness had an expiration date. It vanished the moment you didn't give her what she wanted. At first, it was small things. Borrowing my parking spot just for the night, taking packages for safety, and forgetting to return them for days. Then came the noise, late-night parties, constant screaming at her kids, and vacuuming at midnight because the floor energy fell off. I tried to be patient. I'd just moved in, didn't want to start a war with the person living 6 feet away. But patience turned into regret when she started using my balcony. Yes, my balcony. One afternoon, I came home early and found her sitting out there, on my chair, drinking my lemonade. She smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Oh, hope you don't mind. My side doesn't get as much sun." I stood there, speechless, clutching my groceries like a fool. I told her it wasn't okay, and she rolled her eyes. "Don't be so uptight. We're neighbors." That was the moment I knew I needed to get even. I started documenting everything. Her noise, her borrowed packages, her late-night arguments. I even caught her leaving trash bags outside my door so the hallway would smell nicer near hers. I reported her once, but the landlord brushed it off, saying she was just a bit eccentric. Of course he did. She brought him cookies every month. Then came the breaking point. I woke up one morning to find paint splatters all over my car. The kind of pastel mess you only get from DIY art projects. I knocked on her door. She opened it wearing a robe, sipping coffee, and said, "Oh, oops. My kids were painting outside. You should really park further from the curb." That was it. No apology. No offer to clean it. Just a smirk that told me she thought I wouldn't do anything. She was right. I didn't do anything. Not yet. Instead, I smiled, said, "No problem," and went back inside. But that was the day I started planning her downfall. If she wanted to invade my space, I'd let her, but on my terms. So when she went on vacation the next month, I got to work. I found out something interesting. She had a noise complaint warning from the building association and one more strike meant eviction. I realized then, I didn't have to fight her directly. I just had to make her dig her own grave, while thinking I'd disappeared. The week she left for vacation was the calmest week I'd had since moving in. No screaming, no stomping, no burnt essential oils choking the hallway. Just silence, beautiful silence. And that silence gave me time to plan. I wasn't after petty revenge. I wanted poetic justice. The kind that leaves someone wondering how everything fell apart without realizing they handed you the hammer. I started with small illusions. A moving out sign taped to my door with fake realtor business cards I printed myself. Boxes stacked neatly by my window, visible from her unit. I even left my blinds half open so anyone peeking in would see a half-empty apartment. I knew she'd notice. She noticed everything. Sure enough, 2 days later, I got a message from another neighbor. "Heard you're leaving? Karen said she might take over your balcony space if you're gone." I smiled. Perfect. By the time she came back, the bait was set. She arrived home mid-afternoon. I could hear her voice echoing in the hallway, already loud and demanding. Within a day, she was back to her usual self, except this time, she thought I was gone. She started storing her plants on my balcony, dragging her furniture over the dividing line. I even saw her open my mailbox once. She wasn't subtle. She didn't think she needed to be. Then came the part that required patience. I recorded everything. Every noise, every violation, every moment she crossed into my property. I sent anonymous tips to the building association, backed with time-stamped photos and videos. The evidence built up fast. But I didn't stop there. I had something better in mind. One night, around 11 p.m., I flicked off all the lights and waited. Sure enough, she came out, phone in hand, bragging loudly on a call about how the idiot next door finally left. I could hear her laughing. He didn't even take half his stuff. "I'm going to ask the landlord if I can expand my balcony space permanently." That's when I stepped outside, into the dark. She froze. The call went silent. I smiled. "Hey, Karen. Miss me?" Her jaw dropped. You're supposed to be gone," she stammered. "Yeah," I said. "So are boundaries, apparently." I nodded toward the balcony camera above her head, the one she hadn't noticed I'd installed. That's been recording for weeks. The next morning, I sent the footage to the landlord and the HOA. Every single violation, every invasion of space, every noise complaint. I attached a note. Since you said you needed one more strike for eviction, consider this a strike collection. By the end of the week, the building sent her an official notice: multiple rule breaches, property damage, and harassment. She had 30 days to vacate. She spent those 30 days slamming doors and glaring at me like I'd personally ended her world. But all I did was hold up a mirror. The day she finally left was one of the most satisfying days of my life. I stood at my window, coffee in hand, watching as movers hauled out her endless boxes of junk and vintage decor she always bragged about finding at flea markets. She barked orders at them like a general retreating from a lost war. Every few minutes, she'd glance toward my door, hoping to catch me watching. I didn't give her that satisfaction. I just smiled into my cup and enjoyed the silence returning to my life, one cardboard box at a time. But of course, she couldn't leave quietly. The night before her move-out date, she slipped a note under my door. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity won. It said, "You're a petty, miserable man. Enjoy your empty balcony. You'll never have friends here. Everyone knows what you did." I laughed. She still didn't get it. I didn't ruin her. She ruined herself. I just gave her the stage. When the moving truck finally disappeared, the building felt lighter, like someone had lifted a fog. The landlord even stopped by to thank me for bringing the situation to light. Apparently, several other neighbors had filed smaller complaints that were ignored because she manipulated her sweet old lady image so well. Once my evidence surfaced, the board pieced everything together. Her eviction wasn't just justified, it was overdue. A few weeks later, the new tenant moved in, a quiet nurse who worked night shifts and barely made a sound. We got along immediately. Sometimes we'd joke about the haunted balcony that used to belong to a woman who thought she owned the building. One evening, I was watering my plants when I noticed something lodged between the railings. A tiny ceramic angel, probably something Karen had left behind. For a moment, I considered tossing it in the trash. Instead, I set it on the edge of the balcony facing her old unit. A reminder, not to her, but to me. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction, it's about restoration. Months later, I learned she'd tried moving into another building nearby, but got rejected after her previous landlord shared her record with them. She ended up moving across town. The irony? The last I heard, her new neighbor filed a noise complaint within the first week. Now, when I sit out on my balcony with my morning coffee, I sometimes catch myself grinning. It's peaceful here again. No more arguments, no more paint on my car, no more fake apologies wrapped in cookies. Just quiet. They say revenge doesn't change anything, but I disagree. Mine changed everything. I secretly recorded my boss insulting me, then played it during his big meeting. There's a special kind of rage that comes from being humiliated in front of your coworkers, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't lash out, but burns quietly until it finds the right moment to strike back. I never planned to get revenge on my boss, but after that meeting, he made the choice for me. His name was Dan, a man who wore confidence like a costume and sarcasm like a weapon. He loved to joke at people's expense, especially mine. Maybe it was because I was new, or because I actually took my job seriously. Either way, I became his favorite target. He'd mock my reports during presentations, call me intern, even though I wasn't one, and once joked that I must have gotten my degree from YouTube University. Everyone laughed, of course, because when your boss is the clown, the safest move is to clap. The final straw came during a team meeting with the regional directors. I had worked for weeks on a data analysis project, late nights, takeout dinners, no weekends. When I finally presented it, he interrupted halfway through and said, "Wow, didn't realize PowerPoint had a boring mode." The room laughed. My ears burned, but I stayed professional. I finished the presentation, smiled, and sat down. But inside, something cracked. After that meeting, I started noticing how often he trashed people behind their backs. He'd walk out of conference calls muttering about how corporate hires idiots, or how one employee was a waste of payroll. He was arrogant, reckless, and too comfortable. That's when the idea hit me. He always scheduled his big performance review meetings once a quarter. The ones where upper management joined remotely to evaluate our department. Dan loved those. They were his stage, his chance to take credit for everyone else's work. And that's exactly where I was going to expose him. The first thing I did was check the law, recording without consent. Luckily, in my state, only one party needs to consent to a recording, meaning I could legally record any conversation I was part of. Once I knew that, I started preparing. I downloaded a voice recorder app, kept my phone hidden in my notebook, and waited. It didn't take long for him to give me material. One afternoon, while we were reviewing next quarter's budget, I accidentally mentioned that corporate had been praising my analysis from last month. His response was immediate, loud, cruel, and exactly what I expected. Please, you think they even read your crap? You're lucky I clean up your messes before they see it. Then he laughed, turning to another manager. You should have seen her first draft. My dog could have done better. The whole room laughed with him again. But this time, the microphone on my phone caught every word. And I wasn't done collecting. Over the next few weeks, I got him bad-mouthing employees, mocking clients, and even admitting to stealing credit for work he didn't do. I named the files carefully: budget review, team feedback, meeting 3. Each one another nail in his coffin. When the next performance review meeting came around, I made sure to arrive early. Dan was glowing, excited to show off his achievements. I smiled at him, calm, polite, because I already knew what was about to happen. The day of the meeting felt electric. Everyone was nervous. These quarterly reviews were high stakes. Promotions, bonuses, and job security all depended on how Dan performed in front of the regional directors. He thrived on that pressure, calling it his Super Bowl. I called it his execution. He strutted into the conference room like a talk show host, cracking jokes before the directors even joined the call. Let's make this quick and painless, he said. I know how much you all love listening to me talk. The managers laughed on cue. I stayed quiet, pretending to shuffle papers while checking that my laptop was connected to the audio system. I'd already tested it. My phone's voice memo was cued, the volume adjusted perfectly. When the call started, the directors appeared on the screen, serious, corporate, exactly the audience Dan loved to impress. He began his presentation, taking credit for every successful project the team had produced over the past 3 months. My projects, my analysis, my ideas. I sat there, hands folded, heart pounding but face calm. When he reached the slide about employee development, I knew it was time. He clicked through the bullet points, bragging about how he personally mentors everyone on the team. That was my cue. Actually, I said, smiling. If I may, I think there's something the directors should hear that really shows Dan's leadership style. He blinked, thrown off, but too proud to refuse. Oh, sure, go ahead, he said, smirking. Always happy to showcase a testimonial. Perfect. I clicked play. At first, the audio came through soft and harmless, the sound of a typical office meeting. Then his voice filled the room. Please, you think they even read your crap? You're lucky I clean up your messes before they see it. Laughter followed. His, the team's. Then another clip. Corporate hires idiots these days. I swear, half of you wouldn't last a week without me. The silence that followed was absolute. Every face on the video call went still. Dan's smile faded like someone had dimmed a light behind his eyes. Turn that off, he said quietly, voice tight. I didn't. I played one last clip, his voice again, mocking the very director who was on the call. If old man Jenkins knew how to use Excel, maybe we wouldn't have to fix his reports every quarter. The director's name was Mr. Jenkins, and he was listening live. Dan lunged for the speaker controls, but the damage was done. Jenkins leaned forward on the call, face unreadable. Dan, he said slowly, I think we've heard enough. The room felt like a courtroom. No one breathed. I closed the audio file and looked at my boss. You said you wanted to show your leadership style, I said softly. I just helped. He tried to laugh it off, muttered something about context and office banter, but the directors weren't buying it. Jenkins told him to stay after the call for a private discussion. The rest of us were dismissed early. As I packed my things, Dan whispered, You think this will end well for you? You've just made an enemy. I smiled for the first time in weeks. No, Dan, I said. You made yourself one. The moment the call ended, Dan stormed out of the room. His face was crimson, his jaw locked, so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I watched him pace outside through the glass wall, phone pressed to his ear, no doubt calling HR or anyone who might save him. But I already knew no one could. The recordings were too clear, too damning, and too public. He'd humiliated himself in front of the entire leadership team. Within an hour, the office was buzzing. No one said it outright, but everyone knew. The way people whispered near the water cooler, the sideways glances toward his office door. It was obvious the empire he'd built on arrogance was collapsing. I went back to my desk and quietly deleted the original recordings from my phone. I didn't need them anymore. The truth had already done its job. Later that afternoon, I was called into HR. I won't lie, I was nervous. Even though the recordings were legal, I expected some kind of reprimand for what I'd done. But when I walked in, the HR director smiled, almost kindly. "You're not in trouble," she said. Actually, quite the opposite. "The directors requested that we thank you for bringing this to light." Apparently, Mr. Jenkins had reviewed my work after the meeting and realized just how much credit Dan had stolen. He'd been presenting my reports, my analysis, my strategies under his name for months. HR assured me that upper management was handling the situation, which I knew was corporate speak for "he's done." The next morning, Dan's office was empty. No announcement, no goodbye email, just gone. Someone said he was terminated effective immediately. Rumor was he tried to claim it was all a setup, but when the directors replayed the meeting recording, they heard everything again, including his insult to Jenkins. That sealed it. For the first time in months, the office felt quiet, peaceful. People actually started speaking up in meetings, sharing ideas without fear of being mocked. I was offered a temporary leadership role while they restructured management. It wasn't an official promotion yet, but I could see where it was heading. A few weeks later, I ran into Dan in the lobby. He looked different, smaller, somehow. He gave me a tight smile. "You really got me," he said. I shrugged. "You got yourself." He laughed once, bitterly. "You'll learn someday that this company eats people alive." I walked away before he could finish. Maybe he was right. Maybe corporate life does chew people up. But some of us learn how to bite back. 2 months later, I officially got promoted. The same directors who had once watched Dan humiliate me were now congratulating me on my leadership and initiative. I didn't mention the irony. Now, whenever I lead a meeting, I make sure everyone gets credit where it's due. No one gets mocked. No one gets dismissed. And sometimes, when I see a new employee hesitate before speaking up, I smile and say, "Go ahead. This is a safe room." Because I know exactly how it feels when it isn't.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed the story. See you in the next one.